discussing the issues that make Phoenix a world-class city. Now, on the issues.
Welcome to On the Issues. I'm Vice Mayor Jim Waring. Joining me today to discuss pensions, the city budget process, and a few other things is City Manager Ed Zuercher. Welcome to the show, Ed.
Thanks for having me.
I appreciate you coming back. We just had you on a couple months ago. May seem redundant to our viewers, but you and I know it's not, since the budget is now done. We didn't have that information and how things would turn out the last time we spoke. Some tax things, obviously some things I voted against, but did pass, so I want to give viewers sort of a heads up on different fees, et cetera, that they need to know about. And really I want to talk a little bit about going forward. There are going to be some initiatives potentially on the ballot in the next 6 months to a year, and I want to just talk a little bit about how they affect our budgets going forward as well.
Sure.
So one thing I'd like to start with, because I've gotten quite a few calls, is parking at the city parks. Can you talk a little bit about what's going to happen there?
Sure. So one of the things we posted for public consideration was parking fees at city parks, mostly mountain preserves. And that was decided not to take forward as a formal recommendation at this time. But what will happen is that in the fall, the Parks Board will conduct hearings and have discussions about whether we should move forward with having parking fees at some of our highest demand city parks.
And I'll rudely interrupt you there. So it hasn't been decided.
It has not.
It's not officially happened. It's not going to happen immediately, because those are the kind of calls I get. You know, the media reports, and people read, and then they make their own conclusions. So July 1st, you're not going to start paying fees to go to our city parks.
No, not at all. And it's good. Thank you for having me on to clarify it. It was listed as an option, but it was not taken forward. But what will be considered by the Parks Board, which is a separate body appointed by the council, the Parks Board will have a discussion about whether to use parking meters or parking fees as a way to limit demand at the highest demand parks. And really the three that we're looking at are Echo Canyon, Pima Canyon down on South Mountain, and Piestewa Peak, the main entrance off of around 24th Street in Lincoln. Those are about 500 spaces contained in those three out of over 5,000 spaces citywide. So it's really only a very limited set of parking spaces that we would be looking at.
And you said the public would have a chance to weigh in. Can you talk a little bit about when they would have a chance, what forums would be used?
Absolutely. So it's not been totally decided yet, but the Parks Board meets monthly, and so it would not be before August where the Parks Board would have an agenda item. And those meetings are open to the public. They're on Thursdays and are posted on the city's website. So the public would have a chance to come and hear staff discussion, hear Parks Board discussion, and also weigh in on the item. And the Parks Board may decide to have broader public hearings as part of their efforts as well to take public input on the idea.
So is the council going to have a chance to vote on this again? I've already voted against moving the idea forward, but is this a Park Board decision at this point?
This is primarily a Parks Board decision. The authority rests with them whether to do it. So it would not necessarily come to the council for that decision. But we would certainly keep the council informed along the way as to what the Parks Board is doing.
So you'll send, for example, and I've talked with the Parks Director, Jim Burke, about this as well. So you would send us, say, a list of meetings where the public could engage. We can send it out to our lists, also be found on the city website. I'm sure the media reporter, because I think this will be a highly anticipated meeting, so we'll put it that way.
It is. Anything we do with our mountain and desert preserves has a lot of interest, and rightly so, because the people of Phoenix take great pride in those. And so we would want to have these meetings broadcast as widely as possible, and so absolutely we would want your help in getting that information out to constituents.
Well, we also, you talked a lot at different meetings about the parking situation downtown. That has also changed. Again, I didn't necessarily support the raising of the fees and voted against it, but you want to talk a little bit about what specifically is going to happen and the time frame for that, because obviously we have baseball games, we've got ASU summer classes, a lot of folks who might be impacted.
Sure. So the council did approve changing rates and hours for parking meters. And the first change will be on August 1st, when the hours of our parking meters downtown will change to 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. 8 a.m. to 10 p.m.
And right now it's 8 to 5.
Right now it's 8 to 5 Monday through Friday. The change is 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. every day of the week. And really it's about demand. It's about encouraging people not to park in parking spaces overnight or all weekend. And that's what we had heard from the downtown businesses, was on the weekends and at night, people were finding parking spaces and staying there for 4, 5, 8, 10 hours. And the parking space is designed to be available to customers of businesses, and you want that to turn over. And so that's what parking meters are designed to do, is to encourage that.
Before I came on the council, and I think about the first year of my tenure, it was 8 to 8 Wasn't that right? And then
That's
we
right.
scaled it back. I think I voted for it to reduce the number of hours back to 8 to 5. It's just a little awkward because now we're expanding it again. But in fairness, it has been 8 to 8 in the
Yes.
past. Again, I'm not necessarily supportive of this measure because I think it will have an impact on who wants to go downtown. But now it's going to be 8 to 10, and you're going to make allowances for folks, say, at a ball game, because if you have only a 2-hour spread that you can use the meter, then of course that doesn't get you through the whole game. And we want people to go out to dinner, and that's part of the joy of having those venues downtown.
That's right.
So you want to talk a little bit about kind of what the parameters might be for cost and how many hours you can stay at 1 meter?
Sure, that's a great point. So there were 2 actions that were part of this. One was to expand the hours, which starts August 1st. The second was to have variable pricing available, and that wouldn't start until October or November. And we would actually come back to the council to talk about that plan before we implemented anything. But the key to this is to have the meters that are smart meters that can take credit cards, and you don't have to have a pocket full of change in order to get 2 or 3 hours in at a parking meter. And also, as you mentioned, we need to examine how long the meters are available for. So you don't want to have a 1-hour meter sitting right outside of Chase Field. You want to have maybe 3 hours there. And so we're doing all that review right now with our street department staff.
So if you go to a game, let's say you get downtown at 6 o'clock, you want to go to dinner, you go to a game, it cuts off at 10, so at least in theory, you'd be able to stay for the whole game.
We want to make sure that
our
our meters are long enough that it accommodates people who are trying to do just what you said.
And what's the max for both and they may be different questions. So what's the max per hour at either the parks or downtown? What's going to be the upper limit?
Well, in terms of the parks, nothing has been decided yet on that. In downtown, it depends on the zone. So around the ballpark, the maximum was changed to $4, and elsewhere it could be $3. But again, those have to be, we have to have a whole plan for that so that it's simple and understandable.
And the council will get to weigh in on that.
The council will get to see that. It's not going to be all the time or a lot of the time. There's also the other part of it is there's the opportunity to lower the price of the meter. So perhaps up, as you said, around ASU, we can lower the price of the meters in the evening to 50 cents or $1 from $1.50 to do that. So it gives us flexibility on both ways, to lower and to raise prices. But we want to do it in a way that's understandable to the public. We don't want to, cherry pick here and there. And we would want to publish those days where the meters would be variable above the standard rate of $1.50.
Well, I think it's been a little confusing, through no fault of your own, but it's just, there's been a lot of moving parts.
Yes.
I think people hear that now, and I was hoping you'd come on to clear this up, so I appreciate you doing that.
Absolutely.
You mentioned ASU, and we did have students come down to our meeting who had concerns. Mostly they take night classes, folks coming in from the Tempe campus, coming downtown. I did that 20 years ago when I was a grad student, and there was just a lot more parking. There weren't the ballparks and all that, but they were a little bit concerned. I think we are taking their concerns into account, hopefully going forward.
Yes, you and the council directed us to go back and have specific meetings with ASU students, and those are going to be happening. And what you raise is interesting because it's really the double-edged sword there is while students were able to find free parking, it was doing what was driving businesses crazy, which was students were coming and parking for 2, 3, 4 hours in front of the business and going to class and not going to the restaurant. And so this is designed to encourage people to turn over to use the short-term parking for the short-term needs of the businesses.
Well, we've been, I think, specifically cognizant of ASU's role because we've done so much to lure them down here, and they're expanding so quickly. And obviously the students, by definition, in most cases, don't have as much money as the older folks. So we want to make sure that they have a place to park because it sounds like there maybe isn't enough parking just dedicated to them. They don't have enough lots, it sounded like. So students are sort of forced, if they're coming down at night, to go find something else. And we want to definitely take that into account.
There may be enough lots, but they're probably not exactly in the right place. They're a longer walk or at night.
Particularly at night.
At night, we have to be mindful of that safety. So yes, we absolutely need to work with our ASU students.
I remember the long walks when I was in grad school, and there were some incidences. But all right, so now the budget as a whole. We've got a budget for this year, should be in balance unless the revenue numbers, which have been scaled back, are faulty for some reason. So, but going forward, you and I have had discussions. There are concerns if we have another economic downturn. What are your thoughts going forward? We're already preparing, I hope, for next year, so we don't have a replay of this year when it kind of snuck up on us.
That's right, and actually this penny on my collar is a reminder for our staff. A lot of our department managers are wearing these buttons. It's of what we're doing this summer moving forward, because you identified it exactly right. We have to be very careful in this next budget year to watch what our revenues and our expenses are. And so the penny is a symbol to management and to employees that we're going to be watching our pennies very closely. And we're actually embarking on a process we're calling the CORE, Comprehensive Organizational Review evaluation internally, where each department is going to go top to bottom through its operations, identify places where there might be an opportunity to consolidate, identify those processes or services that we're offering that might not be a core function of the city. And then in the fall, we'll begin bringing those back to council on a systematic basis in order to, again, get control of our expenses. You can't control your revenues as well as you can control your expenses, and so we're really going to focus on that.
Well, you mentioned you're monitoring every penny, and that's a good thing, and we're very happy about that. I thought you kept us pretty well informed, frankly. I thought I was getting basically monthly updates. You and I meet on a regular basis, so I was not surprised that we were in a little bit of pickle, in the spring of 2014. My surprise came from everybody else seeming to be so surprised. I could see this coming, and it just all you had to really do was read the business page and see where revenue declines across the country. The Christmas season didn't do what it was supposed to do, and everything else. So I did not lay the fault with staff. Revenue projections are one thing, but that's what we had. But I did see that we were falling short of the mark, and so going forward, I know the rest of the council members really want to make sure that we're monitoring that every step of the way, as well we should. There was an interesting article in the paper, we're filming this I think June 26th, so it would have been probably Wednesday the 25th, about the efficiencies. Bill Gates has speared that, and started with David Cavazos and has transferred to you. Mario, our budget guy, was quoted in there. You want to talk a little bit about what we're doing there to make sure we can make ends meet in the future?
Sure. So we are always focused on efficiencies, and what you're referencing is over the last 5 years, we've had about $97 million worth of efficiencies, consolidating departments, finding better ways to do things.
Basically, same services for lower cost.
Same services for lower cost. Golf course maintenance, I know that's a subject that you're interested in, but outsourcing that maintenance has saved us over $1 million. So finding those opportunities along the way, and that's really what this core process is about, is to continue looking at those things where we're duplicating services, where there's a service that one department provides that might be better with another department. For example, we know that we have collections departments in several city departments separately, and our chief financial officer's looking at, would we be better off consolidating those into one central location? Probably need fewer staff to do that. Would it be as effective for us to have collections in one place rather than on a departmental basis? So that would just be an example of the types of efficiencies we're going to continue to look at.
Well, I know you're continuing to move forward. I know Bill is with the Finance Committee. I couldn't be more pleased because this is exactly the kind of thing we should be doing. The golf course maintenance, for one example, makes you wonder why we didn't do it. That was an operation that was losing money hand over fist. And
right.
Makes you wonder why we didn't do it before, but that's history. I'm just glad we're doing it now.
Right.
Now, talking about a big ticket item. So in November, we had a discussion, I think it was a week or so ago, about the pension reform initiative that will be on the ballot in November. It's already there. Right. Council is talking about potentially next week. I don't believe, from my perspective, that it's going to happen, but that there might be other items placed on the November ballot dealing with the same subject matter. What are your thoughts on that? Some of the recommendations that were put forward, and what are the implications, if you could sum up, for the pension reform initiative should it pass?
Well, as you mentioned, there's a pension reform initiative that has been rightfully and lawfully presented to the council with the right number of signatures, and it's going to be on the ballot in November. And I think we need to always be looking at pension reform. I know you've been a great champion of pension reform. The specifics of that pension initiative, we're going to have a review done, a report detailing it. But I think the main thing that I'm looking at is what's the effect on city employees and how we're able to attract new employees if we have some of the provisions that are proposed in the pension initiative. I think it's something that's going to be examined carefully by lawyers. It likely, as it has been in places like San Jose and San Diego, could be subject to some litigation because there are areas where they're affecting current employee benefits that we have to be careful about. The state Supreme Court's already ruled on that in the Fields decision with some state changes. So I think there's a lot of open questions on that are going to be debated, probably in the campaign leading up to it, but certainly if it passes, it would be something that would likely be decided in the courts. And that's based on the experience in other cities, as I said, like San Jose and San Diego.
Well, I'm a supporter of the initiative. Frankly, I think the council had years to ponder the imponderables of us moving forward with the current system that was extremely expensive. And so we made the changes that we made in March of or sent to the voters, excuse me, in March of 2013, and they passed it rightfully, I think with about 80% of the vote.
Yes.
And that helped, but it did not solve our problem. The council meeting a couple weeks ago, we had experts in the field from outside the state, inside the state, people hired by the city. It was quite a spread of opinion, I guess, and it'll be interesting to see sort of what moves forward. The proposal that was, I guess it wasn't really a fully formed proposal, but there was A and B at a council meeting, again, a couple weeks ago that some of the ideas were bannered about. You want to talk a little bit about those ideas and what the prospects are for that winding up on the ballot as well?
Sure. So in terms of continuing pension reform, staff brought forward some ideas that the council can consider. As you said, they're known as Package A and Package B, and they will also be available for council consideration on July 2nd. Package A just continues to reform some of the measures moving forward with limiting the amount of income that is allowed to be pensionable for city employees. I think it puts a cap of $125,000 on what can be considered for pension.
So
is a big one.
You there? So we just had an article in the paper about the top pensions. It was David Cavazos and Frank Fairbanks and on down. So would that have capped their pension? If this had been in place then, would their pensions have been capped and not at the $237,000 level or whatever they're at now?
Yeah, if this had been in place at a time where they would be covered by it, because again,
well, I'm not saying it would cover it won't affect theirs going forward,
right?
But had this been in place at that
Had
time?
this been in place covering those folks, what would happen was the amount of money that could be counted towards pension would have been capped at $125,000. So it doesn't cap the pension at $125,000. It caps the compensation that the pension's calculated on at $125,000. So the pension would actually be less than $125,000.
Right, wouldn't that effectively
Yes.
it would act as a cap, to your point, not necessarily at that number, but it would have definitely changed the dynamics. And obviously, these are big ticket items if you spread them out over 30, 40, 50 years of payments.
That's right.
I mean, that was an article that I'm sure some of our viewers probably saw, so
Right.
I figured I might address that point. So what are some of the other things that are being suggested?
Some of the other things in there are being suggested is changing some provisions for new employees about the number of years that are used to calculate pension. So currently it's the average of the 3-year average, the highest 3-year average, and the initiative would change it to a 5-year average. So in effect, it spreads it out, and so it will also have the effect of lowering pension payments.
So this is one place where the council action, should they put it on the ballot, should it pass, would be congruent with the issue that's on the ballot already.
Almost, because the proposal in option A from the consultants is to do it only for new employees moving forward. The one on the ballot applies it to existing employees, and that's where we think there may be some legal concerns.
Is it 3 years? I've always wondered, I know some cities it's your last day compensation. This makes a big difference for employees. Where did the 3 years come from? How is that factored in? How far back does that go?
You know, I'm not sure how far back. I'm sure it's decades that's been in place, maybe even since 1950 when the charter was put in place. But you're right, some cities do have the last day salary, and that's very subject to manipulation. And so the 3 years is about trying to smooth it out over a long enough period of time that, you know, individual 1 year, 1 month, or 1 day swings don't impact it that much.
Is 5 years a standard, or?
I think 3 years is actually more of a standard, but the world is moving to 5 years to try and get a wider spread for that.
There is an initiative effort, I think, underway. They're collecting signatures at the libraries in District 2 to get police to get an initiative on the ballot that would have budget implications as well. You want to talk a little? It's been in the paper quite a bit, so I figure some viewers again may be aware of this, and you might just want to clear the air about some of the long-term implications for the city.
Sure. So as you mentioned, they are collecting signatures. The police union PLE, Phoenix Law Enforcement Association, has pulled papers to have an initiative for signatures by voters to increase the number of police officers in the city. And as I understand it, it puts into charter language a specific number of hours of police service that are required per 1,000 residents of the city. And our quick analysis of the language is that it would require us to increase the number of police officers by about 800 by 2018. And that's in excess of what we have resources for today.
What are we talking about dollar-wise?
So our best analysis at this point is all in. It could be between $100 and $130 million of extra cost to the city
by 2018.
by 2018 to meet the numbers that are in that initiative. And the concern with the initiative is it does not identify a funding source. So it identifies an expense and a requirement, but it doesn't identify a way to pay for it. And so the city, the council would be in a position of trying to figure out, how do you pay for the requirement?
Had some experience with this when I served in the state
That's
legislature.
right.
So I'm very
It's
aware
different from
that
the
you're
state.
cutting things that are arguably much more important than the thing that's voter protected, and you can't.
And we don't have the voter protection in the city the way you had at the state, as I understand it.
So going forward, if this won't be on the ballot in November. They can't get the signatures in time, right?
No, it would not be possible, right.
So we'd be talking about this in March or May.
It really depends
or
on
August of next year.
It depends on when they get their signatures in, whether it be March, May, or August, or November of 2015. That
How
really
many
depends.
signatures do they need?
I believe it's around 25,000 would be required.
As someone who's collected his share of signatures, that's no small
That's a lot.
undertaking. But so they've got paid folks out doing this. So they get the signatures, let's say it's in March. It'll be right in the middle of our budget year next year. And you and I had extensive discussions about this. You're basically, by then I think you would have presented your version of the budget, just like you do every year, at that point. But obviously, if it passes right in the middle of the budget cycle, it would go into effect the next budget year. Is that correct?
Actually, the language that I've seen has it going into effect as of October 1st of 2015. So it starts laying out requirements for certain amounts of staffing or overtime by October 1st of 2015. So you're
So it would
correct.
be for the budget
It would
for the next
impact
year,
that
yeah.
budget that we would be working on next year. There would be a significant impact
And
to
I think
that.
you had told me it's about $40 million that first year.
Yeah, again,
You think.
our first look is it could be $30 to $40 million in that first year.
So let's assume it passes. I mean, what would happen in your mind?
Well, I think the city management would have to come to the council with options for ways to either increase revenue to pay for it or cut services to pay for it, one or the other. And then the council would be faced, as you said, with decisions about, is this service more, what services do we need to give up in order to do this, or what taxes would we raise in order to do this?
Well, to my mind, I would certainly applaud the effort to increase the number of police officers. My concern would be more the locking us in if something, I mean, that's not even factoring in a potential downturn in the economy, and then you could have a budget deficit on top of where do you come up with this $40 million. So to my mind, we could already do this. I would certainly, redirecting $40 million of resources to police would be something I'd very much be interested in doing. I think we can carve out at least some money to do some of that for sure, but I definitely would have concerns about something passing at the ballot right in the middle of a budget cycle, and then with really only, basically you're talking about 6 months or so of wiggle room to try to figure out how to make this work. I don't know that I'm sure it's the last thing you want to think about right now. We just got done with a tough budget cycle, but it's certainly something that for those who are paying attention, it's a serious issue, and certainly I think it'll probably come up in a campaign that's run about this issue, but it's certainly something that people should focus on, the actual implementation of something like this. You know, we can get all the efficiency savings we want, but $40 million that in a quick turnaround would be a challenge.
That's right.
So, I mean, how are things looking with our economy here in Phoenix? I've seen some different things about housing numbers and job openings and so forth. We've had some success here in District 2 with new businesses, but just want to talk a little bit about that.
Sure. Well, we continue to sort of get mixed signals in the economy. On a monthly basis, our tax revenues have been strong, but then we'll have an occasional month where it's puzzling, something isn't happening. The car sales were down, or retail sales weren't as strong. So it's not clear exactly yet what's going on. As you mentioned, home prices are recovering. It looks like it's a pretty good, slow, steady recovery instead of anything too dramatic to cause shocks to the system. But again, it all goes back to jobs and income. We have to have enough jobs and start raising the income in our community so people have resources to spend. That creates tax revenue for us. So right now, what I'm hearing is that maybe the third and fourth quarter of this year might show some strengthening, but that the first half of the year here is perhaps more moderate than people expected.
In a job like mine, you hear from a lot of economists. I've seen a lot of presentations, all of which had predicted 2015 would be a big year. Haven't been hearing that as much. I wasn't happy to hear you use the word mixed, but that's sort of been my reading of it too. Anybody who, again, sits down with the business page, watches everything except the stock market, which seems to continue to go
Right.
up. But it's been very confusing. I don't know what you'd take away from it as an office holder who has to deal with budgets and look at budgets for the next few years. You've got some unknowns like the stuff on the ballot,
Right.
which is why I wanted to discuss that. But it's also hard to take away exactly where we're going. Everybody assumes it's going to get better because it's not great now. But we've really been, theoretically anyway, 5 years out of the end of the recession. I don't know if I necessarily buy that, but the economists have their numbers, and I'll grant them that view. I mean, we could be heading into another recession too at some point in the next couple of years, on top of the things that we've discussed earlier. But there's been no sign of that you've been able to pick up.
We haven't had signs of recession. It's just, as you described, it's mixed signals all the way along, sort of not the usual recovery that we're used to in Arizona, where we lead the nation in job growth and in income growth coming out of recessions. That hasn't happened this time, and that's been very puzzling to economists as they're trying to puzzle out what's going on with the Arizona economy and with the American economy.
And we seem to be doing marginally better than other places, so that's a good thing. But it has been hard to sort of divine what's in the future. People are skitterish, and frankly, I don't blame them. We got hit extremely hard. So folks in Arizona, it was extremely impactful, I think, all around the world in the period of 2008 to 2010. But we're still struggling, but at least we're struggling forward, and that's
right.
a good thing.
That's right. The growth has been, it's been in the positive direction, which is good, but it's moderate.
Well, Ed, I really appreciate you coming on the show again, particularly with such a quick turnaround because you were just
Sure.
on a few months ago. But I think a lot of things that happened and were going to happen in the next year that I thought our viewers would want to know about. So thanks again, and appreciate your steady leadership at the city.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And if you have any questions or comments, please call my office at 602-262-7445 or visit my website at phoenix.gov/District 2. We hope to see you next time on The Issues.